Evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is a regularly scheduled board meeting for the Marquette Township, Charter Township Board. Tonight's Tuesday, May 2nd, 2017. If you'd all join us for the pledge, we'd appreciate it.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Randy.
Trustee LaRue,
Here.
Trustee Everson,
Here.
Trustee Wiegand,
Here.
Trustee Marks,
Version.
Treasurer Johnson,
Here.
Clerk Ratar is here, and Supervisor Durant.
Yes, here.
Staff present is Manager Gerard, and Jason McCarthy, Planner McCarthy is here, and Roger Zappa is not here yet. So,
It's all right. We won't dock him.
okay, that's all we have for. And Mr. Chiotti is here from the Planning Commission. Frank. So.
All right. First thing on our agenda is the consent agenda. To approve that, tonight the agenda consists of approval of the regular minutes of April 18th and a work session meeting minutes of April 3rd. Received committee and other reports, including Recreation Committee draft minutes of April 18th, Planning Commission minutes of March 22nd, Road Committee agenda for May 2nd, and draft minutes of April 4th. Iron Ore Heritage Trail sent us a bunch of stuff. I think I'll pass on reading all of that. Water Production Report of March, Marquette Area Wastewater Treatment Facility Advisory Board minutes of March 16th, Utility Billing Calendar, and the Supervisor's Report. Correspondence not requiring board action is 2 letters from Charter Communication regarding public access channel and the channel lineup. And I'm thinking that means we're going to lose our channel 4. We can ask Manager Gerard later for our meetings. Bills payable in the amount of $230,721.57. And financial includes the March statement for finances and the treasurer's report.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Approval of the regular agenda. We do have a couple changes. We are going to remove H, 10H, and put it on the May 16th agenda. It has been requested of us to do that. We are going to take,
Move that to what?
are you with me so far?
May 16th.
10H.
This one?
Okay, we're just going to save that for the next meeting on the 16th. 10 F and G we're going to move up. So 10F is going to be 10A, and 10G is going to be 10B. And we'll renumber all of those. Any other changes? One?
I'd like to add under, I guess would be after the manager's report. And I don't know what that is, but it'll be the computer server consideration of replacement.
Okay. So that'll be 10J.
Move to approve as amended.
Wait.
Support.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. See if we can keep this straight. Okay. I guess we can't start this. All right, we'll start with public comment. Anybody wishing to address the board, please feel free to come up and give us your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Robert Taylor. I reside at 892 County Road 480, Marquette, Michigan. And I would like to thank you for postponing till the next meeting so we can have some good hopefully good information for you and some people that know a little bit more about this than I do. So I just want to thank you for tabling that.
Okay, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to address the board? Okay, board member comment? Anybody have anything to share? Question, ask? Sure, go ahead, Pete.
Our Marquette County Township Association is going to have their spring banquet on May 10th at the Marquette Township Hall here. So mark your calendars, bring your wives, and it's always a good meal. Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else want to share? No? Okay, I've got something I wanted to share. I'm going to read it because it's a little bit long, so I want to make sure I get all my bases covered. Township residents can be very proud of how diligent, respectful, and talented the township staff is. And since I'm in the office more frequently as supervisor, I now have the opportunity to witness this firsthand. The public has heard at recent meetings inferences that this township is being careless or reckless. I assure you that is not the case. As to using office staff for fire department backup, the township is not going to engage in something that compromises employees. Of course, there is insurance coverage. Of course, we are following state rules and regulations with licensing and certifications. Having temporary supplemental coverage for our paid on-call fire department is not only necessary when there's a lack of participation, but an important provision for maintaining the health, safety, and welfare of our residents and our visitors. Hiring and organizing a business office takes time, and things are finally coming into place where supplemental coverage won't be necessary much longer. Manager Gerard said this was temporary, and it is. Just because it didn't happen on January 1st doesn't mean that it is going to continue. Mr. Sims has asked for a meeting with the board officers to talk. While this is not a typical request of board officers, the topics in question of procurement, employment, uniforms, and employee policies are not the responsibility of this board. While the township creates these policies and procedures, the township manager is responsible to enforce and administer them. I suggest Mr. Sims contact Manager Gerard if he has questions. Accusations without facts are not credible, any more than an anonymous letter is. I also don't appreciate that employees have been singled out by some of the public at our board meetings. They're doing their jobs, administered by the manager and dictated by the board. We set the policies and parameters he uses to manage, hire, fire, and discipline all employees. Manager Gerard has the responsibility for staff. The board does not. Anytime the public has questions about anything this township is doing, the manager is happy to sit down and visit with you. If you have something specific where research is necessary, write it down and drop it at the office or send a quick email. That way Randy can have the information ready for you or forward it however you prefer. Okay, we have no forum discussion tonight, no unfinished business. So new business A10 is consider draft ORV ordinance first reading, which falls to Jason McCarthy.
Jason, is there something you need for that, or no, on the computer?
No.
Okay.
You can disregard the jump drive. Good evening. The Planning Commission has done what you've asked, and they've provided research and a draft ORV ordinance for Marquette Township. Essentially, that ordinance is a carbon copy of the Marquette County ORV ordinance.
with the exception of the urban residential district, which is essentially Trowbridge Park. That area, the Planning Commission thought it was best to prohibit the use or, essentially abide by the zoning or the noise ordinance in restricting use from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. We received essentially positive comments, mostly positive comments. We had one gentleman, Mr. Thorrington, who didn't oppose the ordinance, but he had some concerns about people trespassing on his property. But that was really the only concern that was raised. We do have supporters here, I suspect, from the ORV group, who did provide instrumental help in drafting the ordinance. I think they are supportive of it. Again, as I stated at the last meeting, the impetus for this was to open up Marquette Township local roads for ORV use to connect to other trails in the area. The map that's provided shows the restricted area in the urban residential district, and in the green, you can see that those are the acceptable roads, and then the state highways are prohibited. There was a comment made, and I didn't hear back from Attorney Zappa on it in time for this meeting, but one of the things that we wanted to include in the ordinance, if possible, and if it wouldn't be confusing, is to just denote the state law with regard to how you can cross a state highway at a 90-degree angle. But we didn't want to muddy the waters per se, in that, as you're deliberating tonight, you may want to consider having that provision added, or to task Attorney Zappa with researching that some more, perhaps before the second reading, if you're supporting it. I would also recognize Mr. Wiegand if he has any additional comments he wants to make on the ordinance, as he played a pivotal role in its drafting.
I don't really. It's pretty much boilerplate to what the existing county ordinance is. We just added some particulars in there to address our urban residential area with speed limits and hours of operation. But other than that, it's pretty much the same as the county has.
Anybody has any questions for Jace or John?
I'm not sure whether Jason's through.
I am.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, I have a statement to make. I think that the Marquette Township Planning Commission has responded to the board request to craft an ORV ordinance that would allow residents access to trails via the county road system in our community. The Planning Commission recommended ORV ordinance now presented to the Township Board for adoption, however, has one provision that I cannot accept without revision. That provision is the singling out of only one township residential area where restricted hourly ORV operation will be enforced. My position is that other residential areas, such as Oak Hills, Bishop Woods, and Huron Woods, or for that matter, all other township residential areas, are entitled to the same limited hourly ORV restriction as found in the Planning Commission proposed ordinance, only limiting hours of ORV operation only in the area that the majority of this township board resides will be noticed. You can pass that out.
Thanks, John. That's probably his. Isn't it? I did have a question from someone today, Jace, about how, even though you can cross 41 at a 90 degree, how do you get, if you're not allowed to ride along 41, how would you get back and forth? You can only, I mean, how do you, I live on 41, so it's not so hard, but if someone is behind me, can they,
Well, if they're
Can they
able to
go
use any
along?
local road, then they could feasibly use Commerce, they could feasibly use Brickyard.
okay, so they'd have to go road to road, they can't cross 41 like by my property, right? Because they'd
Correct.
have to travel
Correct,
along
you can't
41.
travel along the shoulder.
Okay, that's what he was wondering about, because he's behind me. Okay. Jay, or,
I think the comment that trustee Marks brought up needs to be looked a little bit further into because of additional residential areas. There are residential areas in that other areas. We may want to look at those, include those at the same time and that. Only comment.
is there a reason you just picked Trowbridge?
I think it's the density. It's a very dense area. 52% of the township's 3,905 residents live within that 1 square mile platted area.
Anybody else have anything to ask? This is our first reading, so it will come back again. We've got time
Any
to think about
direction?
it, or?
Any motion for direction to the planning commission that you know, is there support for John's comment to, have the planning commission look at that?
Go ahead, Dave.
That's an easy enough change to make even after the ordinance, because that section refers to or as denoted on the map, which has to be on the website. So you can add to or take away from the restricted hours of operation area strictly by publishing a new map. Am I correct, Jason?
Yes.
And it's worded that way in the ordinance, that it refers you or as otherwise denoted on the map that's on the website. So you don't necessarily have to change the wording and describe a new area in the ordinance, because it refers to it as denoted on the map that's being shown up there.
Doesn't it single Trowbridge out, though?
It
But
singles
why did-
Trowbridge out
why
as
was-
in,
Why was Trowbridge Park singled out as if those people need more sleep or something like that? What in the world is going on?
strictly-
Well, he just said, he gave
Strictly
you a
because
reason.
Other than they have people, but you're gonna have people in residential areas who are still gonna feel the sound, they're gonna feel the roar. I don't understand the singling out and what the advantages. In fact, I think it's a disservice to the board members that live in Trowbridge Park, frankly.
Were you finished, Dave? Go ahead.
no,
Sorry.
it wasn't, they weren't actually singled out. It was because that is described as urban residential as opposed to rural residential, which would incorporate Huron Woods and Bishop Woods. Those are residential areas. The only reason this was selected is because it's urban residential, it's a definable area, and 52% of the residents live in that defined area.
That's where the voters are.
No, it's not even that.
So it's not that, John.
Go
It has
ahead,
nothing to
Pete.
do with that, John. It's what it is that was our problem area. And I just figured it spread right throughout the whole Marquette Township. The county has theirs, it's countywide. We're concentrating on our problem area, the worst area that we could work on. And that's where our questions to some of the trail people, how could we handle that because of the population? We discussed going down several roads, but my complaint on that would be, why would we single out a certain road for everybody to go down? Why not spread it out and you won't even notice it, They had the same problem about snow wheels years ago in Chopley. Manistee went through the same thing. They went countywide. I just think it's gonna be Trowbridge Park, they're gonna act and drive that way. It's gonna throw out until they get in the woods, no matter where they go out.
Dave?
It's not, we held a public hearing at the planning commission level. Other than the gentleman that Jason mentioned, whose problem is actually people that are coming over a hill from city property that are coming down on the back end of his property that he was concerned about. So it really has nothing to do with the trail system or with the ability to operate ORVs along the public roads. It really that still doesn't address this problem. It's more of an enforcement issue with the city. But this ordinance could stay in place as it is, or could be voted in as it is, and you can change whatever you want for areas where the restricted hours of operation are just by highlighting them on the map. And you don't have to do an ordinance change to affect that. The reason this was done the way it is because we didn't receive any, if we had received any comments to that effect at the public hearing or all the time that this was discussed at the Planning Commission, it would have been considered. It wasn't singled out for any reason other than we hadn't heard any comments to the contrary.
When was it first published?
John, he's got the floor.
Okay.
You finished?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it at 3 or 4 or more Planning Commission meetings, and the public hearing was 2 meetings ago.
Just looking for the affidavit here real quick.
I saw the average, pardon me.
Are you finished?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to rush you, I just
No, I'm
don't want to
finished.
cut you off.
Yeah, it was, the county has had, they deferred their opportunity to comment, but it's planning commission, we can easily change the map to address all subdivisions if that's what you want to do. This is our first crack at it. We know that Trowbridge Park was where the tickets were getting written. We didn't hear really any complaints. We have planning commissioners that live in Oak Hill, that live in Bishop, I don't know about Bishop Woods. I know Jim and John both live in, or Steve and Jim live in Oak Hill. They didn't raise any concern and say, why not, but it is a valid point, and feel free to discuss it. We can give us some direction for the next meeting, and we can bring something different.
Let's talk to Roger first, John, because maybe that
Sure.
could answer some of all of our questions.
First, just a point of clarification, the ordinance version that was provided to me to review says specifically at section 5B, within a defined urban residential area, an ORV may not be operated between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. So it would require, if you're going to change it to all areas, it's a very simple, about a 5-minute revision, but it does require a revision to the ordinance itself, not just to the map. On the other issue, in terms of crossing points and incorporating the statute that allows crossing of a state trunk line is what it is. So while we can add that in, it doesn't really add anything because we can't go contrary to state law on that provision in any event. So that's kind of a preference. And I apologize, I didn't have a chance. I had a tour in our office last week and so forth, and so I didn't get a written opinion on that, but that's the conclusion.
Well, I would think it'd be best to have that language in there anyway, even if it is mandated, so that anybody reading our ordinance knows that that's part of it.
Well, presumably, anybody operating an ORV has taken an ORV safety course, or at least has familiarized himself or herself with the laws of the road. There are a number of excellent programs along those lines. So, to some degree, there's also the issue of lawyers have a tendency to make things longer than they need to be. So my initial impression
You said that.
is if it doesn't add anything, keep it out, but there's nothing wrong with putting it in either. That's kind of a board preference type of thing.
Yeah, if it's passed in whatever fashion you guys choose, we see an opportunity to educate the public with our own website dedicated to the ORV ordinance. Have the map on there, reference the state statute, and give some direction and clarity for those people who are using ORVs in the township.
John, go ahead.
If I'm understanding Roger's comment, is it does take a change to the ordinance to add it. Okay.
Yep.
So the time to do it, if you're going to do it,
Would be no.
is that now?
Sure, we can do that, if that's what we want to do. Dan, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just going to say,
Yes.
I mean, I'm in support of this. We've got some people in our neighborhood that are riding right now. They're going down the roads, and I got to be frank that they're much more polite and courteous and with the speed limits than most cars and some of these loud motorcycles that go whipping by. So I don't see where they're going to hurt anything.
Ernie?
A couple of things. doing a quick gleam here, reading it before now, what Roger brought up, section 5B. It appears to be the only portion that has to really be addressed in that at this point in time that I could see in that. And how the language would have to be written, I don't know, but to call attention to other residential areas and that. And as Mr. Everson said, I have them coming down Fair Avenue, and they're not from the township. They're wheeling down Fair Avenue, and they aren't very polite and very, how do I want to put it? They're not very quiet when they're wheeling down Fair Avenue from the city, and that they're really going in that too. But that, I think John brought up a valid point. I think if we can do it on section 5B with the right terminology there, we'll be pretty well take care of it in that too, so.
Yeah.
Can't we just blanket the whole area,
Yeah, I was gonna say the wording,
the whole residential area?
township, or however Roger thinks. it should be
Residentially
worded.
zoned area might be more appropriate.
Okay,
It covers the whole thing.
yeah.
And they want direction, and I think that's good. Look, we know we need the ORV ordinance so that people can get from their home to the trails. We know that. So they've got to have that. But I think that this one effort that they've made falls short of being something that's going to cause a problem with the ordinance itself. And I would suggest that having it for all residential areas, or the way that Jason has suggested it, is the way to go. And rather than hold this thing up at all, I think that if we could do that, I think we go a long way.
Would we need a motion to send this back, or can we just give
You can make,
a?
you can make a motion to accept the first reading with those amendments.
So move.
Support.
Motion and support. I would like to see the 90-degree crossing left in. I think it just clarifies it even more. When I look at a manual, if I'm reading computers or whatever, and it doesn't say something, I think it doesn't do that. And I think this is just one more point of clarity for the public, especially for new riders or young riders that aren't going to pay that much attention to the state ordinance.
We
I think
have
it's just
one
more
motion,
clarity.
don't
Yeah, that's just the thing that I wanted to add,
Yeah.
make sure it was part
There's a
of.
second motion?
No,
No.
no, to the discussion.
Good.
I
Ernie?
just want to make sure that Roger fully understands the direction we want to go at this point in time.
I think I'm clear.
Yeah, I think Jason knows too, so they can, do
Your questions, Jason, clear.
you have to take this back to the planning commission then too?
No, the board has the ability to make changes on the fly prior to
Do it.
an
That's why
approval.
there's a first
For our next
reading.
meeting. Yeah, but I didn't know if we still had to go back to planning yet.
The only way is go back to the planning if we didn't accept it at all and physically send it back. Seeing we're accepted and we're moving forward, planning commission did their job.
Please don't do that.
Yes, Pete?
I think I've noticed the riders that I do see now, they're more respectful of the road conditions, the speed. They're not, I think before, if you've seen somebody going, down the road fast, they just want to get off the road. They
Right.
want to get a ticket. But now I see them more respectful of the property owners. I've talked to several people who instructors. I talked to Tony, and we said, make sure you tell them to be respectful of the people's property, because that's the biggest thing. People get mad at them if they start tearing up the things, and then you get more and more restrictions on it. If they use it until they get out in the woods and that, I think that's fine. But I've noticed since we started talking about it, I think I've noticed some of the people just going to be more respectful of the sound and, speed limits going down and that, so. And I live down on Woodridge and Huron, and they're going right down because they cross the road and they go right into the woods, so I know that's the road they're using, so I noticed the difference since we started talking about this, so.
They're afraid of you, that's why. Anything else? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Good discussion. All right, Jason, for the new 10B, consider 2017 Michigan Department of Transportation Traffic Alternatives Program Grant Resolution.
So I've been working with MDOT. We've submitted our MNRTF development grant for the proposed recreational underpass. MDOT has suggested that we apply for the TAP grant prior to May 8th. So I have been pouring through the application process. One of the requirements that we have is to have a resolution of support for MDOT actually applying for this grant. We are the co-applicants in this case, which is a positive thing when you look at, I guess, the political realm of it all. A couple of brief updates from last time I asked you for a resolution of support is that we acquired the AT&T easement that we needed, fee simple. They came through and provided that. That's a major contribution. And we have our first donor towards that project. I'm happy to report that the Nicamenon Trail Network unanimously voted to donate $10,000 towards our project. That means a lot to me because they are a nonprofit organization, and they were the first ones to step up and make a contribution towards this project. So we're very proud of that fact, and we can use that hopefully as a springboard when we go and talk to, and we have talked to some of the other larger stores in the community, and we'll continue to work towards getting that number down to zero, as I hope we will. That being said, this resolution is required for us to apply for the federal funds. I have had some conversations with regard to some concerns that were made about long-term maintenance, liability, and I've been told by MDOT, essentially, the township is going to own that structure, okay? But there is no additional insurance required to put on the structure. There will be an annual maintenance cost. Could be anywhere from $500 to $1,000 a year. Talking about having it swept out of debris, maybe twice a year, replacing any light bulbs that are busted or go out. And then, of course, monitoring what we hope will be security cameras, because it will be, if constructed, a long culvert, between 150 and 200 feet likely. With regard to liability, I do have a transmission, excuse me, just 1 second. Email correspondence from Mr. Ron Yesney, UP Trail Coordinator. Says, thank you for your planning efforts on the proposed US 41 underpass project. The Department of Natural Resources appreciates your partnership and work on this project. You mentioned that the Marquette Township Board of Commissioners had some concerns with snowmobile use of the underpass. I want to let you know that let the board know that the township would be named as an additional insured under our landowner insurance program. There is also additional protections built into the law that protect landowners. I am attaching the relevant documents. Lastly, I believe that having an underpass would be a much safer alternative for snowmobilers and motorists than crossing what exists now. There will be a maintenance agreement requirement on our behalf in the future, but if the structure, and this has never happened in talking to MDOT, not to say it can't happen, but it's never happened. If that structure were to fail in some fashion, MDOT is not going to make Marquette Township pay to replace that structure. It's never happened in their history. They have these all over the state, and I've talked to local representatives, regional, and statewide reps. We hope to enter into agreements with folks like the Nicamenon Trail Network to help maintain that trail segment for us in the summer, and the snowmobile group will maintain it verbally. They've agreed to that. In the winter, they will make sure that snow is either added into the tunnel with the groomer, or, you know, if that's not feasible, I mean, they go across the road anyway, so I don't know if it's necessary. One of the things that we talked about is putting down inside the tunnel a higher grade of asphalt, which is more resilient to the snowmobile usage. So I think that hopefully puts to rest some of those concerns about liability and insurance. you know, the cards are lining up. We'll see how far it goes. But this isn't the next step. I have to have this application in by May 8th. And the reason for that is because the MNRTF and MDOT with these traffic alternatives program grants, they talk to each other. We will know by fall whether we're successful with both grant opportunities. That's all I have, unless you have a question for me.
Anything for Jason?
I just had one.
Yes.
The $500 to $1,000 for maintenance, is there a possibility of getting the clubs then to foot that bill annually?
Precisely. Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's the agreements that we hope to enter into prior to October, when we
Okay.
have to have everything lined up.
Anything else? Yes, Roger.
Just a point of legal clarification on the status of the easement with AT&T. You have a written commitment that they will enter into such an agreement, but we do not have the easement per se yet. We're still wrangling over some of the internal language of what that's going to look like. So, but it is nonetheless a step in the correct direction, but you do not have a piece of paper that is a recordable easement at this point.
Ernie, go
I
ahead.
think with just what Roger said, that was one of the contentions that we had. If we didn't have the easements, everything would stop. So until we really have the final easement from AT&T or anyone else, we can move around down the line, but there is a point in time when we don't have easements, it's going to stop at that point in time. That was the discussion that we had.
October 1.
He needs a
Anything else?
motion.
Yep, we need a motion. If anybody, you want to go ahead, John?
No.
You're loud.
No, I mean, I know he needs a motion to do this and get it on its way.
I'd really appreciate it if you made a motion.
And I think that the support has been here, and I would expect somebody to make that motion.
Also make the motion. And do we have to read the resolution?
It'll be in the minutes as stated, so.
Okay.
I'll support.
There's
Okay, I got it, John.
roll call.
Yeah, it's a resolution. Go ahead, Randy.
Treasurer Johnson,
Yes.
Trustee Everson,
Yes.
Trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
Trustee LaRue,
Yes.
Clerk Rattari is yes, and let's see, who am I missing here? Trustee Marks
No?
and Supervisor Durant.
Yes,
Motion carries 6-1.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jace.
Have a good evening.
You too. Okay, now we can go back up to the top. What was the top? Consider video conference on Thursday, June 15th for the establishment of policy governance from 4 to 6 p.m.
I move to schedule the work session to establish policy governance.
Support.
Motion and support. Check your calendars. It's a Thursday. So we're going to do a video conference in one of the small conference rooms.
What time was that?
4 to 6 is what we've set aside.
Do we have
Okay.
any documentation prior to it?
Yep, Susan's already ordered some books for us, and, yep, I hope to have that for you way ahead of time. So you'll have some time to look at it, and she should be able to give us like an agenda or a guideline of what to consider and what to look at. Okay? That's good.
We gotta have the vote call on that motion.
That's right, because it's considered a meeting. Yep, I'm just so used to doing these. Okay. Anybody want to make a motion?
Well, I made one to accept the,
Support.
Motion and
John
support.
supported.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Consider public comment policy. In your packet is something that I drafted with legal's help, just to make sure I had all my i's dotted. And I'd like to start reading this before every public comment. And what what I became aware of was that the public doesn't understand really how our meetings run. And when you have smaller groups like the Planning Commission or the Rec Committee or something like that, they're a very relaxed group of people, and the discussion is very relaxed. And the public doesn't understand, for the most part, how township government works. We're not as structured really as the city. They follow Robert's rules pretty closely. We don't. But we still have specific protocols to follow. So what I'm recommending is, and I'll read it so the public knows what we're looking at, is this would be read before each public comment. Obviously, if there's nobody in here, it won't make a difference, but maybe it should still be part of the record. This board is conducting a meeting today to take care of township business. You are allowed to participate at least twice tonight, but we will not have back and forth conversation between staff, the board, and the public. For public comment, or if you would like to speak on a particular agenda item, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes to address the board. If your comments are directed to a particular board member, that board member may respond to you at board member comment, immediately following public comment. Otherwise, if your comments are directed to staff, Manager Gerard will respond or contact you after the meeting with the information you have requested. Because in a few of our meetings, when we've had folks who have either had an item on the agenda or want to speak to one of those items, they think that this is a participatory meeting, and it isn't. We're here to conduct business, which just happens to be an open meeting for the public to somewhat participate in, because that's why we're required to have at least one public comment. We have 2, and then if they want to speak on the item, a specific item, they can. Yes, Pete?
Excuse me. Some townships and cities, they have this posted and it's sitting in the back as you come in, so you don't have to read it every time.
Yeah, I was thinking about just having it in the agenda or something, and Roger thought it might not be bad to just read it. So it's here for discussion. I just like to educate the public as much as possible. Ernie?
I think what Keith said, posting it somewhere out there so people know when they come in what's required to speak to the board. And that
Okay. Just
somehow.
put it on the door, maybe, or,
Wherever.
No, you just put it on the back seat, that's most of them do. Where you put your agendas,
okay.
they have this right next to it.
Maybe we need a table back there, so it's not on a seat.
Pardon me, I think what you're saying is have a pass out. Is that right?
Or just one copy?
We can try it, you may want to try with small copies out back there or on a, post it somewhere.
Roger, does it make a difference to you?
No, I had suggested a couple of revisions to this, so that wasn't the version that I had,
Did I print the wrong one?
apparently.
Okay. Well,
Lynn?
yes.
And I seen that on the back of the agenda that you put out up there. In some cases, they put that right on the back of their agenda.
We can do that too. As long as we have a way of informing the public somehow.
I think that's a good suggestion.
You don't know how many you're gonna need, because you know how many papers you put out there and how many they pick up. If you have 5 and 6 out there, that's gonna be plenty. You know, if somebody wants more, they can get more, but I mean,
We got, and if we have room, it can go on the front,
yeah. You can always carry a little packet with you, and if you need more, you just pass that particular policy out, that's it.
The only added comment I would make, if I could, is that I think we do need to have, when Roger and you are through sorting through it, some common adopted rules need to be adopted, but they need to include all 7 members of the board equally.
You want to expound on that a little?
No, I think that's pretty good if you think about it.
Okay. Well, this is just, do we need to have this as a policy? I just called it a procedure. I don't know how, if we can just add it to the agenda? Dave?
Why can't you just put it right below public comment on agenda item 6.
That's
Just
what I originally had asked.
print it out.
Yeah, we were just kicking
I
around.
mean,
Doesn't need to be a policy, we
Save you a
can
spare
just do
piece of
it.
paper, just print the statement right below public comment, everybody can read it when they get to it.
That's fine with me. Anybody else? Okay,
We're gonna add our agenda to 3 pages.
maybe. It actually could be smaller type. I think that would help too.
You don't need smaller.
That's what glasses are
You can
for.
get older.
You want to put the doctors out of business here? Okay, thank you for that. 10C is consider amending the Articles of Incorporation of the Marquette County Solid Waste Management Authority. You can see that in your packet. It used to be C. Let me back up. We received this just after the meeting a couple weeks ago that I attended. They are looking for a response and a signature. The first 2 pages are the explanatory letter, and they want us to submit the 3rd page. Yes, Dave?
You used up your 3 minutes.
I have a couple of questions. First, I can understand, I guess at first I was wondering why the county has to be on there if they're not a constituency agency. I understand, I had a discussion with manager, and I understand why they need to be there, what the principle is, but what occurs to me that we haven't addressed any place along the way is representation
Yeah,
on
we
the
have.
board. And I don't see anything out there that confirms what that should be and what the composition can be so that the townships have some representation. And
That was the first thing I brought up
I don't know
probably
if
a
this is
year
supposed to
or
be
so ago.
part of this,
No.
or
Not
when,
right now.
when this is gonna be addressed, I guess concerns me, because we just don't seem to be addressing it. And I guess if we had to hold this hostage to get that addressed, that seems a reasonable trade-off to me.
I had a long discussion with the sand supervisor because she is the one that's trying to get this clarified for all of us, 22 of us. It's, in my mind, it doesn't matter to me whether the county is a constituent municipality or not. It's the process that the authority went through removing them that I object to. The original, this explains right from the beginning that the county was part of the original agreement. They were the umbrella, they were the big brother, they were the binding force that helped the city because it was a mess. All the solid waste was just out of control. There was no cohesiveness to it. So they said, let's get together, we'll put the solid waste out in Sands. They agreed. They get some kind of a stipend every month to help offset taxes or whatever their agreement is, and the authority was formed. Representation, in my mind, just coming from the library side of it, was the first thing. That's the reason I went to the meeting. Same thing with the library. We have no representation, and here we are putting this money into it and supporting it. And that's why I started going to that meeting as well. I tried to get some of you guys to participate, but I was committed. So, I think to answer your question, number one, no, that's not part of this, the representation. The second part of my argument that I got up and spoke was, if the county is not part of this whole organization, then they have no right to appoint 3 people to a, 7 or 8 member board. I think that's about what it is. So, they're like fighting with I don't know what. They just don't want to give in. And when I talked to the sand supervisor, she said she thinks that this will help us if we agree to this, as much as she and I don't agree with it. If we agree to it, it will start the process of getting a better dialogue and getting the types of representation that we want. Does that answer your question?
It does, but in my opinion, I cannot support this because once this is done, then there's no way to bring them to the table on representation. And we don't know when that'll get addressed because it's been an issue for a couple of years that I know of, and it hasn't been addressed yet. And now we have this show up and everybody has to sign it. And it's kind of a trust me, we'll get to this other stuff worked out, and I don't see that happening. I think all the stuff needs to get worked out.
Well, and the topic didn't come up with the authority in this discussion about representation. It wasn't addressed at all. So there is no, you sign this and we'll let you have a party and be a party to this. You know, that's going to be something totally separate.
I think it shouldn't be.
They're trying to fix what has been done, and in my mind, rescinding the original motion would have taken care of it. That's what I would have, I did suggest that. John? Before your arm goes to sleep.
A couple of us at least have made an attempt to achieve what Dave wants to achieve. But that wasn't possible at that time. What happens now is they have dumped the county from it. The one umbrella organization of all of the townships was dumped. So bringing the county back as simply as a constituent municipality, the title they had before, will be good because you, one more time, have the offices of the county to help the number of townships that want to eventually have representation different than it is now. And the county, as a member of the Waste Authority, serves as an umbrella function, as they did at the beginning, not as a user, not one having an obligation, a responsibility, or any liabilities, and not pledging its full faith and credit. If we just reinstall them to the position that they held before, you will one more time have the umbrella organization that was there at the beginning, and its many resources available to the townships that are there. It doesn't mean you can't go on campaigning to have better representation. And I think that will happen eventually. It's just growing, and it's growing slowly. And the Waste Authority, who are appointed, are not interested in having other representation.
Ernie?
Couple things. I attended the last meeting. I've been kind of watching this because I was not really involved with it. First started back in the late 80s, early 90s, had some background there. But looking at some of the documentation and then talking to the supervisor from Sands after the annual meeting and that, when they removed the county, it was by a simple motion. They did not follow the rules and regulations of everything. So the question I have is that if they removed them by a simple motion, why didn't they bring them back by a simple motion? And also, if you look at all the municipalities here, every one of them have to send it back, otherwise it's a no vote for the county. The county actually went through and held a vote, said yes, they want to be part of it. The actual authority, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know what their agenda is. I don't have the slightest idea. And the only ones that know it is them. And you listen to these people talk. When they brought this up at the annual meeting, the president or the chairman read it. There's no discussion, no questions on this. This is the way it is. We'll go on to the next item. That's just the way he handled it and that. It was unbelievable the way they were doing it and that too. Sitting in the audience and listening to it, there wasn't one individual appointee, they're not elected, they're appointee, that said anything. They're sitting there like a bump on the log and that. And I have a question, really, and I'm raising at the May 13th meeting. Where did they get their legal advice to do it in a single motion? because they didn't follow the actual authorities' articles of incorporation. And then they turn around and have to follow them to bring them back in. To me, it just doesn't make sense. And I have no problem asking each one of them to resign because you don't know what's going on, and whoever gets your legal is, you better get someone that has some legal background in this rather than whatever you have. So if each one of these do not send it back, it's a null point, complete null point on it too. So, and I know where Dave's coming back, and I agree with him. We need more representation there. But until we get the county who appoints and some of the other things changing, they don't want to change anything.
John?
There's one quick point, and I apologize, but you need to understand there's more to the depth of the swamp that's there. The legal advice that they get,
I did get to that one.
the legal advice that they get there is from someone who is, in fact, on the county board. And so there's a conflict. And that's what brought this whole thing up and why they got rid of the county.
That's the third part of this, the chair, you know, with the 3 legs. It's the county's involvement, and it's the misrepresentation, really, the conflict of interest, and how they removed the county, those 3 things. Yes, Dave?
I guess the point I'm trying to make, and maybe not adequately enough, is this a 9-person board, correct? The county appoints 3. There's 3 from the city, and there's 2 to be dispersed somehow.
Sands gets 1.
So Sand gets 1. So after you have this signed, and you have 6 people on that 9-person board who don't care if the township gets any more representation, how do you bring it to the forefront again? You're outvoted right from the start. So I think the only place to make an issue out of that is right here. We don't sign the document and address our issues.
Pete?
Well, I sort of agree with that, Dave, a little bit, but I think you're wrong. I think the first step is to get the county back into it. Look what happened since they've gone, different problems they arise. And if we don't do it, if you don't get 100%, nothing's going to change. So I think the first step is to get the county back in there, and then we can start the process of getting better representation. That's all enough air I got to go.
Part of the problem with the way this is being handled is that they're bringing the county in as a constituent municipality. They're not saying they're rescinding the motion. They're bringing them on as a new participant. That's my objection too, is they were already on there. And I was kind of almost anxious that they were gonna remove the county so that we could have those 3 seats. Somebody, we, the participants, could have those 3 seats somehow.
I think it's amazing they bring on a new constituent municipality and who already gets 3 seats.
But they don't want any financial responsibility or liability, which they didn't have before.
Sitting on the board.
That's the other thing. Yeah, Stan?
Lynn, if the county was removed by a simple majority, and if that's not a legal procedure to do, then isn't the county technically still on the board?
That's what I said, yes.
They don't like that.
They went to Representative Kivala and asked for an attorney general opinion, and they refused to be involved. The attorney general said, nope, we're not getting involved in your contracts. And then they asked for, I don't know if they asked MTA, they asked for 2 or 3 different opinions on the conflict of interest between the attorney, who is the attorney for the authority, and he's a county board member. And the attorney general responded to that, saying it was not a conflict, but, and I have all the paperwork in my office, you can read it. The example they gave, the precedent, had nothing to do with him being a board member. So I think the whole thing is, I argued with the Sand supervisor saying, I have a hard time supporting this because it goes against, it looks like I'm agreeing with what they did. The county, in my mind, is still a member.
There's a lot more going on than what anybody knows about, obviously.
So, it's up to you.
There is one,
Yes.
there is one valid point that's made about putting the county back on. If the county isn't a member, and that's what their stand is now, the county is no longer a member of the authority, then there's no longer a conflict of interest if the attorney for the
Authority?
authority is a member of the county. So putting the county back on brings back that issue, and they can take it to Lansing and take it to the Attorney General. So if you don't give them that, they don't have, this group that's trying to get some recognition won't get any at all. They'll just say, well, the county's not a board member anymore, so there isn't a conflict of interest.
Yes, Ernie?
You want to go deeper in that. When it voted at the county board to bring it back on, our representative at a meeting, who represents the south side, moved to suspend the rules so they could do this. So he did that, and the county's representative to the authority voted to support it, which is also the attorney for the authority. And that individual voted to move him, voted yes to remove the county from the authority to start with.
First place.
You start listening to all this, I get real concerned with legal advice when things are working like this. It just doesn't make sense after a while, too, so it's,
Well, no, not all legal advice.
no, but this whole thing is so clouded, and they don't want to talk about it. I still don't know why they want to remove the county and that. It's very interesting. If you start reading the documentations and go to these meetings, you get to the point, well, what's going on here? Because no one says anything at the meetings. Be honest with you, no one says a thing in that.
When people get up to speak, they won't even look at them.
That's
They
it.
look away or they look down.
So it's a very interesting meeting in that. So I would challenge anyone to go and just listen to see what's happening in that. So it's, but the events that took place, you can't imagine it. It's almost like a pre-written show in that.
Well, I think we need to make some kind of a motion as to whether or not we want
I'd be happy to try a motion.
to,
I would make a motion not to consider amending the Articles of Incorporation.
we have support? I'll support it.
Roll call vote.
Discussion? Anything else, Ernie?
When does this have to be back?
They want it like now. They want it
But I'm
as soon
trying
as
to go through, there's no
possible.
dates as to
No.
when they want it or anything else in
Really
it.
isn't.
So
Well,
they
they
could
just
hold
had-
off until 2 years from now. Randy.
Yes, Randy?
If the Articles of Incorporation are now open, why would your motion not to be to amend the Articles of Incorporation to include representation? If they're open.
Say that again?
The Articles of Incorporation are apparently open, so why would your motion not be to amend the Articles of Incorporation to include representation from the township? This would be your opportunity to address it.
Assuming that the county is not a member, then?
No, add to it. You'll support it as long as you also open the amendment for representation discussion.
Oh, I see what you're saying. There you go, Dave.
And if they refuse to do that, then you don't sign the agreement.
I think the orders of organization that they have designate the county as the authority for the appointment.
Well, they have 3 appointments. They don't have all of them.
county makes the appointment.
I'd be happy to amend that.
Okay.
I would make a motion to not support the amending the Articles of Incorporation until such time as board representation, equal board representation is addressed.
Okay. Maybe you could flip it around the other way and say that you agree with this, including the issue of board representation. No, I'm paraphrasing.
Once we do that, we've signed it, right?
If they agree with it, then we'd have representation. I'm trying to get you what you want, but it's your motion, you're entitled to say whatever you like.
No, my motion would be not to support it until they've included,
Until they've included
equal
equal
representation.
representation of 22 municipalities, or?
No, just equal
it?
representation on the board. They should be able to work that out. They know what everybody's after.
Roger, did you have an issue with that?
Just one legal issue is, part of the amendment is to add or to eliminate the lack of clarity on whether Marquette Township and many other townships are even constituent members. Because there's no official record that can be found, to my understanding, and I have not attended these meetings or even reviewed the issue at any depth. But that is something that at some point needs to be addressed because it's unclear. I don't want to say that they aren't constituent members, and certainly they've all participated as if they are for 30 years. But that's something that could use some clarity, and this component of it would fix that by just making sure or reinforcing that Marquette Township and the other townships are in fact constituent members.
Do we need
Yes.
to be worried that they could hold this over us if we've been participants for the last 30 years? And then now say, well, if you're not going to sign this, good luck with your trash?
Well, you also have an intergovernmental agreement. It's basically, which are two different things. So they would be in violation of the intergovernmental agreement. But it is nonetheless a legal factor that should be cleaned up at some point. Whether or not it's up to, all the other townships except for the city and one township are in the same boat. So,
Okay. Yes, Dave?
That's why I make the motion the way I make it, is because once this, whatever way that this gets signed, then the representation is back to what it was. And there's no impetus by anybody to change that because we don't have the votes to force a change. And I just think that there's a whole lot more going on here that needs to be clarified, other than, I guess I feel we're getting
Generally,
the
if
bum's
it's-
rush to get this
if
signed and
there
get
are
it back
articles
to
of
them so that we can get
incorporation,
this all taken care of. And in my opinion, it's not all taken care of.
Anything else? Yes, Ernie?
I think what it amounts to is by putting it out to all the municipalities, they need a vote from every one of them positive for the county to come back in. If they don't get that, they get one no vote, the county does not come in. That's already been stated in that. So and if one municipality does not vote, that's considered a no vote. And so it's the way they've got it laid out. It's a no-win situation when you come down to it.
And I think it's intentional the way it's set up.
It is.
Well, they're betting on you, you're saying, no? So I think we should just vote for it and just go from there.
Okay. Roll call vote, I'd like.
What are we voting on?
Okay, the motion is do not support the Articles of Incorporation of the Marquette County Solid Waste Authority until such time where equal representation is included. Is that correct?
Correct.
So the roll call vote is Trustee Wiegand,
Yep.
Supervisor Durant,
Yes.
Trustee LaRue,
Yes.
Trustee Marks,
No?
Trustee Everson,
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson,
No.
and Clerk Rattari is no. But that motion carries 4-3.
Okay. Thank you.
An interesting meeting on the 17th.
Yeah, well, you better be there.
You better be there too.
Okay, 10, yeah, we should really all go. 10D, consider drinking water revolving fund UPEA invoices. We don't have Kirk here. Does anybody, Randy, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, what you have before you is the result of your action at the last meeting, separating the two projects. These are the additional costs that were incurred in doing that.
Move to concur with the Superintendent of Public Works recommendation.
I'll support 26,000 to UPEA.
That's right.
13,000, right.
Questions?
Yeah, what this, and Supervisor, Trustee Wiegand and I met with the engineers, and basically what this amounts to is you remember, when they had the two projects together, they had spread administrative costs and inspection costs over the two projects. When you pulled away the water project, it shifted those costs back to the road project. So that's what this is showing, and the same thing the other way. Some of the costs from the road project shifted back over to the water project. So this is the rebidding, the separating of the projects, putting together the new specifications and bidding them separately.
Yes, Dave.
Question for Randy, does this include the extra work that they did gathering information? For
This
the
is
board?
only Kirk's part.
Okay.
We're good? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. 10E, consider fire prevention and protection special assessment. We did have a presentation once already from the fire chief about the possibility of purchasing a used ambulance for services in our township. This is a memo from Randy Gerard, the manager, detailing, excuse me, what we need to do next. Scheduling a public hearing is one of the items. That's one of the reasons it's on the agenda tonight. I don't know if you want to read your memo or if that's necessary.
Up to the board.
It's part of the packet. John, I think you had your hand up first.
I move that the Marquette Township Board increase the current 2.5 mil special assessment for fire prevention and protection by not more than 2.75 mils for the year 2018 only, for the purpose of acquiring an ambulance.
Second.
Question.
Actually, Ernie was first.
I don't have a problem with this. The only thing, I think we're putting the horse before the cart or the cart before the horse at this point in time. I think we need to have the hearing first and then act on the millage at this point in time. We may have a lot of people in the audience says, no, we don't want to go anywhere near this and that. So I think we need to hear from the people in the township before we move forward on this at this point in time.
I think we have to do this before we can have the public hearing, don't we? Don't we have to have action?
What I ask the board to do is to take an action to establish the process to have the public hearing, not to increase it by 2.75 mils, but to increase the special assessment to be not more than 2.75 mils in total, somewhere between 0.15 and 0.25 of a mil.
Can we just amend the motion to create the public hearing for this purpose? No?
Well, Roger, how do you want us to do it? I was under the impression we had to institute this so we could have the public hearing.
Well, you've been dealing essentially with counsel from downstate on your special assessment issue, so
This is just a procedural, in my mind. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. We know we want to have the public hearing.
We gotta have that.
Do we just do a motion to have a public hearing for the purpose of blah, blah, blah? Would that be cleaner?
yeah, that would cover it. I think you need to have a motion that that allows you to go forward to authorize the public hearing.
Okay,
And then that, what you were describing in the special assessment increase, if that's the route you want to go, that was just additional detail on what would happen or what would be addressed at the public hearing,
okay.
if that answers the question.
I think the motion that's presented is correct, but it's kind of backwards. It should be to schedule the public hearing on Tuesday, June 6th. And then after that part, then you give the description
For the purpose
for the
of,
purpose of. So I think that's,
Accept as amended.
do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Discussion? We will have a presentation at the public hearing. The fire chief will give a complete presentation. We've got some charts and some information. So the public is welcome to come, watch it on YouTube, give us input. We are not, let me clarify something right now. We are not going in the ambulance business. There's a big difference between what we're trying to accomplish and what some people are expecting. And we've already had one person at the last meeting say, if you go into the ambulance business, you're gonna be so sorry, you're gonna be running all over the county, it's gonna cost you a fortune, blah, blah, blah. That's not it. We are already performing basic life services for our residents that come out of our 2.5 mills. We're already doing that. This would allow us to be able to transport those people that we're working on already. We don't have a vehicle. We already have the trained people. We already have the licenses. We already have the education. We have everything in place but a way to transport. And because of some of the bottlenecks that have occurred in the county, in some cases, we're sitting there with the patient waiting for an ambulance. Being able to buy a vehicle and pay it off in 1 year and probably break even on the rest of the services, because now we can bill insurance agencies for what we're doing for these residents or visitors. It just makes sense. We have a co-op agreement with the rest of the county. If we're needed, if we can, that's great to help somebody else. If we don't, it's for our people. That's the purpose of it.
And how many do we have last month?
We had, what did he say
33
today?
or 37?
We had 70% of our
Over
calls.
70%.
Over 70%
Percent
of our calls
April.
would have been transportable. We're getting a huge uptick, and it's just continually increasing the last 6 years. So we will have those statistics on June 6th. Pete, did you have your hand up?
Ernie has some.
Yes, Ernie.
So the way I understand the motion, to establish a public hearing to review the necessity for increasing the special assessment. May not be the right wording, but that's the direction we're going in that at
Yep.
this point in time.
To establish the public hearing.
Up to 2 point.
And it's, again, if you read some of the information already, $200,000 home, it's like $25 one time that you would pay. You couldn't get an ambulance for $25. That's the only outlay you'll have. For me as a business owner, it could be up to $183 one time. I'm willing to pay that. That's it.
Roll call.
Yes, sir. Roll call.
And I'll read the motion. The motion is going to be the same that it's in the packet, but it's backwards. But the motion will be to schedule a public hearing, establish a public hearing for Tuesday, June 6, 2017, and to provide the necessary written notice to taxpayers and publication of the required public hearing notices for the purpose of increasing the 2.5 mil special assessment for fire prevention and protection for 2018 only by not more than 0.15 to 0.25 mils, 2.75 mils maximum, to purchase a BLS, which is Basic Life Service Ambulance.
We have it starting at any time.
No, because it'll be in the meeting, it'll be in the agenda of the meeting, so. Trustee Marks.
Yes.
Secretary is yes. Trustee LaRue.
Yes.
Trustee Wiegand.
Yes.
Trustee Everson.
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson.
Yes.
And Supervisor Durant.
Yes.
That motion carries.
Thank you. We do not have 10H till next meeting. The manager's report is next.
Fairly brief. We did have a follow-up meeting with Semco representatives regarding the proposed gas line routing across Marquette Township and through our Wellfield area. As of right now, they do not as yet have a confirmed final preferred routing. They are considering several that we had suggested. We met with them again and again reinforced our concerns with the location of the proposed crossing in conjunction with our continuing exploration on our property for future well sites, and we're working with them. They're indicating that they would not be looking at starting any kind of construction until the fourth quarter of 2018 or the first quarter of 2019 for the pipeline. So we have a little ways off yet, and we'll be continuing to meet with them. Lions Field, just to let you know that the Marquette Little League and the JV varsity, or the JV softball teams from Marquette Senior High School have started their practices and their games on the field. So the field is going to be occupied now for either practices or games under the contract that we have with them, the agreement, until June, actually. So it's going to limit the general public access to the ball field portion, but not the rest of the facilities. The Downtown Development Authority has completed review of the final draft proposal from Parsons Brinkerhoff with regard to the corridor improvements that might be associated with the 2019 and 2021 MDOT projects on US 41. That will probably be coming to you. We did have a follow-up telephone conversation with them as well, and there will likely be a recommendation from the DDA coming to you following their next meeting. There's a possibility that they'll be scheduling a special meeting earlier than that. And that's really the only other thing I have is just to remind residents that based on your action at your last meeting, starting on Memorial Day, the township offices will be closing at 4:30 during the week. We will be open at 8 o'clock, but we'll be closing at 4:30, starting Memorial Day and running through Labor Day.
Ernie, go ahead.
Just one question. Going through all this charter, what does that mean to us, the way they're doing things?
What it means is you're going to lose Channel 188 for the most part, and those that are on T1 or Tier 1 of the specialty programs will be picking up 3 additional channels. I have no idea what's going to be on those channels.
So are we affected? Is that what you're wondering too?
Are we affected then?
Well, public Channel 188 is the public access channel, and I believe our meetings are broadcast on that. So we'll be moving to a different channel
Okay.
at some point.
But we will have access.
Oh, we'll still have access, yes. That's the what's referred to as the PEG channel, and they're doing away with that. So I don't know as of this point what channel we'll be on. They've not told us.
Yes, Pete?
Randy, is Sundays open for the Lions Field? Seems that that's
Yes,
the
they have Monday through Friday. The ball teams have priority Monday through Friday. And the hours, I listed the hours in my manager's report. It's till 5:30 for the Little League, and I think until 9 for the JV softball.
Right. No, I just wanted people to know that there is time for our
Weekends.
residents.
Weekends are open.
Yeah.
Randy, we talked about the sheriff's department. We met with the sheriff and the undersheriff when they came into office. We also said that we were looking at sheriff's patrols. I haven't seen a difference. I'm thinking the manager needs to call them or invite them here, or...
I will be doing that because I share that concern as well. We originally had discussion with them, and they assured us that there would be increased patrol activity on US 41, and I've not seen that as yet. I'm also concerned because very soon the speed limit on some highways in the UP are going to be expanded to 65 miles an hour, and that means automatically that this will speed up as well. It's not part of the 65, but the folks will be driving faster, I expect. So I will get in touch with them and see where they're at. They've been fairly busy with weather-related issues and with some other unfortunate situations that have occurred, and our car has been tied up with some of that. But I will get back with the sheriff and see where they are with the patrol activity.
Will he be addressing the board as a whole?
Well, we had kind of invited him, and I don't know, Randy can mention it to him again. I'd like to
He
see
will come,
them
because I asked him.
Yeah.
come a couple times a year, if not more often. His predecessor was ready to come in almost every meeting. Part of the problem is the county meeting is right before ours.
Yeah, same day.
So it's kind of hard for them to be there for them and then come here. But, yeah, ask them and see what they're able to do.
He has undersheriff.
I was just gonna say, he can come one meeting and under sheriff on the next, maybe.
And the patrol captain.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else for the manager? Okay. 10J is computer server consideration.
Actually, 10I, because we removed one.
Yes, we did. Thank you. Randy, that falls to you.
Well, as board members know, we had some issues over the last few weeks with our email server and with some of our data. And as it turns out, our domain controller, which is one of the primary servers that we have, is approaching 5 years old. It's a little over 4 years old. We've got it in the prior building. Life expectancy on those is around 5 years. So we lost 2 of the 5 drivers that were in there. They have been replaced with temporary drivers until the board makes a decision on what you want to do. You basically have 2 options. One is to replace those 2 drivers with new drivers, take out the temporaries and put new ones in, and roll the dice with the remaining 3 continuing to operate, or to replace the entire excuse me, domain controller, which is what I'm recommending. It's reaching its service life, and that is something we cannot be without. That is our primary server that handles most of our data and stores most of our data. We do have a secondary server that is the same make and model. However, its functions are not the operation of the entire system. They're very specific tasks that it provides. So it's about a $9,300 replacement, and we will be building these into the capital improvement plan going forward. I'm getting a proposal from 906 Technologies on how to structure that going forward, but I do believe we need to do this right away on this particular server.
Clerk Rattari has volunteered some of his budget, actually. Do you want to
Well,
tell them?
when I heard about this, I talked to the manager about it, and I did have $6,000 that I did have budgeted for the new voting machines, which I don't have to spend now, because we're not going to have to pay anything till year 6. And I do have $3,000 for an election that we're not going to have now. So I do have $9,000 that I can contribute to the new server, which would just be a budget amendment at the next meeting. So,
Nice.
It's everything but $300, right?
And that was my first question to the manager when we were fighting with emails back and forth. He discovered what the problem was. I said, okay, how do we pay for this? So,
Seeing I didn't go to the MTA, I think my budget, which is not anywhere near the clerk's budget, could pick up the additional $400 on that without a problem.
We have that in the general fund.
Pardon?
We can pull that out of the general fund as well.
you might want to save yours then for,
You may wish to do some additional travel
Okay,
to a meeting, if they have a UP conference again.
Just
Thanks, though.
more information. Are you saying that by not going to the MTA, that we've saved $9,000?
No.
That's what
no.
it sounded like.
No.
See what he eats.
No.
he was going to cover the
I'm gonna cover the
360,
$300.
whatever,
Oh, okay.
$3.
$300 to $400.
He's
I wish I had the
he's just
9,000.
pulling your leg.
so I'll make a motion to authorize the manager to replace the computer server as soon as
So
possible.
moved. For
Motion and support. Anything else?
For the record, should be referred to as the domain controller.
Domain controller.
What's the time frame on that, Randy, once they get working on
Right away. I already had them order it. It has to be replaced.
it? There isn't gonna be a time when you're gonna be down, or they're
No.
gonna be able to do a transfer?
They'll do the transfer overnight.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Down to number 11, public comment. Anybody wishing to address the board?
Street, I have a question, I have a comment and possibly a question concerning the public comment policy, and I don't know if you want to answer the question or not because of the way you put the policy. But I understand the 3-minute limit on comments, but I think you included board agenda items that people asked to speak on, and I don't believe we've ever limited that to 3 minutes or not allowing questions, since that is an agenda item. I just wanted to know, clarify that.
Thanks, Dan.
Robert Sims, 2662 Montgomery. I wasn't going to speak tonight until Lynn read her comments. I'd like to have a copy of that, and I will comment on that at the next meeting. And I'd like to get a copy from Randy Ritari of the last verbiage of the election to renewal of the fire millage.
Okay, I'll take that as a FOIA request then, Bob.
No, I'll pick it up at the hall. Thank you.
My name is Tony Harry. I live at 6369 US 41 South, Marquette. I want to let you know I started the ATV ORV club in here in Marquette County, and I work all over the whole UP. I do 3 trails in Newberry, Michigan, Silver Creek, the Two Hearted, and the Pine Ridge. We take care of the trail from Champion Republic, and I just got the trail from Gwen Arnold, and we're working on that. But I'm working throughout the whole UP. I was born and raised up here in the Copper Country, and retired from Marquette Public Schools, and of course they hired me back, plus I'm working for Dearton Schools at this time also. And I'm state certified through the DEQ. I'm a water supply operator also. But we're working on just watching the board here tonight and everybody working together. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's just like Holt and Hancock. You approach the bridge in your ORV or ATV, and there's 3 different times during the day that you can get a police escort from either Houghton Police or Hancock Police to go across the bridge with your ORV group. And that is great. Everybody working together. I've seen everybody with their different talkings and what they believe in, and it's nice that everybody can pull together and do this. And if I can help with anything at all, I also went out and got state certified. I'm a DNR recreational instructor, so I can teach the course. I've done courses at Camp Nesbitt for the kids, Boy Scout Camp, the DNR Pocket Park in Escanaba, and I did one in Chocolate Township Hall last year. So if anybody needs any help on any kind of trails or answers or laws or questions, I'm willing to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
For your time. You guys are great.
Thanks.
Anybody else wish to address the board? Okay. Any additional comments from the board itself? Dave?
Just to advise the public that listens to this is give them an update on what the plan is. The board already has it. It's in their packet, but the redesign for the 2017 road rehab project is to by May 19th to have redesigned and revised the plans and specifications, advertised for bid on May 19th with a June 15th bid opening and a June 20th recommendation for award, and anticipating a July 3rd to October 13th construction season to have that balance of the road rehab project completed.
Say that once more, July what?
From July 3rd to October 13th.
Thank you. Yes, Ernie?
I had forgotten about, when Dave brought about roads, is anyone gonna take a look at Fair Avenue? We've got some major cracks and major things going on with Fair Avenue and that, so.
Yeah, there's one pothole right by Woodridge that should have been fixed today, and we have that listed on our crack seal project for this year with the road commission.
There's another one in the center line, just past the school.
Mhm.
Actually, that must be 4 or 5 foot long, that's actually gone up. And then in front of my place, there's a crack there that's unbelievable, and then it gets wider all the time. And that-
Yeah, the center is pulling away.
Yeah.
You know, when they join the 2 lanes at the center, there's some gaps that are being created, and those are gonna be filled.
Yes, Dan?
I just wanted to commend the fire department for putting on that children's fair at the Westwood Mall last Saturday. That was, as always, they had a real good turnout. Kids love it. They just love getting their stickers and their little tattoos and helmets, and it's a good time for everybody.
Great.
I can't.
Anything else? Okay, I just need one more motion then.
So moved. I
Second.
support.
Okay, we are adjourned at 8:08. Thank you.